Well, Danielle, thank you very much for such an interesting talk, and it was lovely to see you in front of some enthusiastic children. But there are a couple of things that we'd like you to really emphasise for our viewers. One of those would be, what is it you think we've got to do to encourage more young people to become engineers?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and there are so many things that I think we need to do at many different levels, and I think some of it for me starts with the curriculum and the school curriculum, primary school and secondary school. And just allowing children, students, young people to play, to tinker with technology. They're very, very used to it, more used to it than you or I are. And what they could develop, if they were allowed to, could be enormous. My feeling is they don't get that chance to develop because this idea that if you fail, then it's wrong. And we shouldn't have that. We should celebrate the fantastic failures. Engineers fail, and that's how we innovate. And we're taken out of our comfort zones, and that's when we innovate. And if children are never allowed to be taken out of their comfort zone and be allowed to fail, then they're never going to be able to innovate in a way that they could if they were allowed to do that. So I think celebrating fantastic failures, recognising that we fail, and it is a fantastic thing to do, and that's how we develop as engineers, is a really, really important thing that I think we've missed in schools these days.
Now, leading on from that, that's a really interesting point. What do you think we should be doing to get that across to schools and the people that plan the school curriculum?
That's what it is. It's the people who plan the curriculum. We've got to show them that by allowing people to do this, allowing teachers to have time and to develop an experiment where it may go completely wrong, but actually at the end of the day, if all of those students have learned something, that's a good thing. And to give the teachers confidence to do that as well, because I would think that there are many teachers out there who don't have the confidence to do that, either the confidence in the subject area, or the confidence to actually allow their pupils to fail and to think that that will be okay, yes, because of this incessant need to be
top of the table.
Yeah, and to be in the league tables and examined all of the time, so that you're top of the league tables.
Yes. Yeah. Leading on to another question. How would you get more young ladies involved in engineering? That's a topic we hear so much about.
Yeah, it's a great question, because I don't understand why there isn't more. I mean, that we need to do more to do it, but I'm not quite sure what that is. I mean, there have been so many initiatives to get more girls into engineering. I think for me, and certainly what I'm trying now, is that we are trying to go into primary schools more, because by the time the girls are doing their GCSEs or indeed their A-levels, it's almost too late. So you either have captured them and they get what physics is or what maths is and see that link with engineering, or they don't. And it's almost too late. But if you capture it in primary school, where every single child is curious, every single one of us, when we were children, were curious, and every single one of us would have built blocks and knocked them all down and done all of that.
Yes.
At some point, that was knocked out of most of us.
Yes.
And at what point was that? It was probably somewhere in that primary school age. And so working with children and teachers in particular to make sure that that isn't knocked out of the curious child is really important. So we at universities are doing a lot more with primary school teachers and primary school children these days.
So how can we make engineering appeal like fashion, or maybe the pop industry or the media industry?
Yeah.
These are the things that I speak to girls sometimes at schools, and they say, "Well, engineering, isn't that going to make my hands dirty?"
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Isn't that what my brother should be doing? He hasn't got any O levels or something.
Yeah. It's this perception that we have to change, and we all have to work at it, and certainly government and professional bodies have got their role to play. And indeed many professional bodies are working on this. The IET is, the Royal Academy of Engineering is, the IMechE is, there are lots that are really trying to to, instead of working separately in their own silos, trying to work together a lot more to say we have the same problem.
Yes.
Whether or not they end up to be electrical engineers or mechanical engineers is almost a byproduct. Let's work together to get more engineers, and then we can have a bun fight as to what they do later on when we've actually got them. So it's this perception and this image that it's a dirty world.
Yes, it is.
And you're in a boiler suit or a hard hat or something like that. And it most definitely isn't that.
Not so, that's right.
But unless we're out there telling young people that that's what it is or isn't, then how are they going to know? So I think role models have got a lot of a big role to play in this.
Yes, one, and that's a good question, because there are many role models in other careers, but there aren't. You would be considered, I think, as a role model for a lady in engineering, but you're few and far between. There aren't many people like you that I think a school student can say, well, I went to see a lecture by Professor Danielle George. It was fantastic, you were inspiring. But it's quite hard for people, teachers, ourselves, to say, look, let's try and find somebody to inspire young people. It is. It's really, really difficult.
It is really difficult, and I think hopefully we all have a role to play in that, and certainly academics like myself do definitely have a role to play in that in the future. But what we want to make sure we're doing is helping the teachers to become more inspirational. And you do get so many inspirational teachers, and you remember those teachers. I remember the inspirational ones from when I was at school.
Absolutely right,
and,
you do.
And if we can help inspire the teachers more, their reach is much, much more than I would ever do. So if we can work a lot more with teachers, help build their confidence and inspire them more, then they have a class of 30 students who they then become very inspirational too. Then the reach of who is inspirational and who inspires you is much, much further than, like you say, the odd role model that you might get.
So what would you say to the primary school head? What would you say to the secondary school head if you were saying, this is the message I have for you?
I know it's really difficult, but let the league tables alone. Let the work that you do speak for itself, and it will eventually in the league tables. If your teachers are inspirational and they've been given the freedom and the confidence to allow their students to be curious, to be resilient, to tinker with things, then you as a school will benefit from that, because you are producing the next generation of whatever that is, whatever we need. It's just that scary thing for head teachers that it might not happen in the next few years if you take your eye off the league tables. But actually, if you take your eye off and just concentrate on what's important, which is the education of the young people, and then building the confidence of the teachers if it's needed, then the league tables will just follow along, and your position in the league table will just follow alongside it. So almost forget the league tables, which is incredibly difficult.
It's very hard. Its heads are driven so much these days by league tables. Perhaps a last question. In terms of dividing, say, engineering skills between hardware and software, how do you see that panning out? Software is quite exciting, and it's something that we hear in the Science and Engineering Society, schools wanting more support. They want more support to teach our children, or help to teach our children to code. We don't get so many requests for support for engineering. There's some, but coding has become a sort of hot button now.
It has, yeah. And one of the main reasons for that is the media, BBC in particular, and the government putting it into the national curriculum. So coding is now in the national curriculum, which is great. BBC have brought out the BBC microbit, which is fabulous. And it's this idea that yes, there is coding in there now, but you need something to code. And that's the hardware. And these BBC microbits can be connected to other electronics, the Raspberry Pis, the Arduinos, etc. And so it's almost via stealth we're doing it, you know, getting people into the hardware side of engineering via stealth, and sort of making sure they're really enjoying it, and then going, hey, do you know you've just done some engineering there? And I think it's a shame in a way that we have to do it via stealth, but if that's the way we have to do it for now, and then sort of have that eureka moment of, do you realise you're doing engineering? It's fine, but it'd be so lovely to be in a point where it is just embedded in everyone that they know about the great opportunities in science and engineering, and they've always known about them.
Yes. Professor Danielle George, thank you so much. It's been a wonderful experience for us all here.
Okay, thank you very much.